point blank then, if I can, why do people believe the official story of 9/11?
Well, that's a good question. There's a lack of historical perspective, right? So kind of what we're doing herein by trying to give you these references in these books is inoculating you with information. It's a vaccination of information so that you can be coherent, you can have the context, you can have the history and facts at your disposal, and you can articulate them in such a way that someone else can consume them and make them part of their understanding, right? So the reason that people believe the official story, well, media in and of itself gives you a selective view. They give you a repetitive view, which is, one of the things that Pavlovian conditioning would have you do, right? So these are Tavistockian ideas, if you will, right? On top of that, the media has completely owned those companies that you look for every day that you think are your trusted friend in the news world on TV with 3 letters, Those were all created by the people who look at you as sheep, and they are the shepherds. And you are not the same as them, and basically you are animals to them, which is why they talk about, Ted Turner talks about taking out 90% of the population. So just the rich people and their jets and their private islands, and everyone can, exist. And I just happen to disagree with that. I'm not angry with them. I don't hate them. I just happen to disagree intellectually with that. And I think I can say some words that might help to change it in our favor, right? The other part is the government. The government gives you a selective view, and they're not known for their integrity or their trustability, right? In the past, there's been countless false flags, whether it's the Lusitania or the Spanish-American War or the Gulf of Tonkin or all these things that have now come out, declassified documents. They were all started for money. Not a legitimate, yeah.
Just a few weeks ago, we had President Obama speaking, I believe, in Cairo. It was his Cairo speech where not only did he essentially echo George W. Bush's speech to let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the events of September 11th, but he acknowledged what we referred to earlier as Operation Ajax, and this is the known CIA operation to overthrow the democratically elected leader of Iran in 1953.
Kermit Roosevelt
wrote all about it. So he acknowledged Operation Ajax. So it's this sort of, selective sight on things that, oh, well, yes, this happened, but these other things didn't.
Operation Gladio. There's a book called NATO's Secret Armies. And, all of these things, I mean, when you look at the history of false flag operations, they go back for thousands of years. When you look at Art of War, when you look at Machiavelli's work on the Medici family and how they maintained and attained power, it's all right there in front of us. But like Alan Dulles says, that, the public doesn't read. So we're going to make, his group was going to remain in control until we started doing our homework and, not just listening to Vincent Bugliosi tell us it was Oswald with a single, magic bullet. Because Oswald can't make the Secret Service stand down that day. Oswald can't, control C.D. Jackson owning the Zapruder film and editing it, provably, right? So these different things help to block people's view. It creates that blind spot because you have a trusting relationship with a corporation, which is actually a sociopath. So you should look at yourself. Why are you trusting sociopaths to print your money, to educate your kids, to feed your families, to provide services that you could be providing to yourself? And ask yourself why you're paying all these tax dollars, not to the Federal Reserve, but to the private international bankers who were not elected. This is what Barry Goldwater is talking about with our non-elected leaders. And the next step would be, the third one, media, government, and then religion. Are we a Christian nation? Are we an evangelical nation? I don't know. How many of the founding fathers represented Christianity and not some secret society, right? So we have these ideas in our head because of media, because there's a group of 50 million Christians out there, and they're led by Ted Haggard, right? That's his name, right? Ted Haggard?
Yep. Among all the others.
Yeah, right. So you've got these characters who are living, hypocritical lives, lying to millions and millions of people, getting them to back a war against people who are, just on the other side of the world trying to live their lives just like us, right? So shepherds don't lead the people, man. Shepherds lead sheep. So that's why James and myself are more of a, hey, I will think for myself, and if you're thinking for yourself too, I think that's safe to work around you, and I'll work with you, and I'll cooperate with you, and I would want you to walk right beside me, but I don't want anyone following me, and I don't really want to follow any of these other pseudo-leaders, because I see the short-sightedness of what they're doing. I see the limitations to their game. I see where they're doing a limited hangout and trying to be gatekeepers, trying to be catchers in the rye and keep people from going over the cliff of truth and figuring out, hey, that what they're doing, they're controlling everybody through an illusion, right? So those are the reasons that people believe the official story. They, those are the ballpark reasons. Everyone can have a different, little micro reason, but
those cover the pretty main areas. Those three: government, media, and religion.
Sure. And then it's like the other thing that's in their blind spot is this. Like, what is the root cause of 9/11? Was it money? Was it power? I would assert that it's control. It's control over your mind, your body, your fear mechanism, right? And you just have to understand that there's a group of people who are operating on this planet who have an operating system or a belief system that mandates that, they are chosen to control you. And that you're not mandated, you're not controlling them. They're there to control you. You don't have free choice. Schwarzenegger's made comments about this. Winston Churchill's made comments about this. They are there to tell us what to do, because otherwise we would never know what to do with this beautiful planet and all these resources, right? So they have to make everything artificially scarce. They have to have us not on a sustainable, solution for energy like hemp. They have to have it on something that they can patent and process and control, like oil, because oil gives you a great excuse to go around and collect everyone's land. Right, but we don't need to be on oil. But the Skull and Bones guys,
I was just about to say, I was like,
they have patents on cracking the petroleum and making it into fuel, and it allows them to monopolize. And taking hemp out of the market allows DuPont to produce nylon and all these toxic chemicals, right? And so by taking a natural predator out of their industry like hemp, which you can't patent, and it solves their pharmaceutical problems, it solves energy problems, solves food and clothing problems. It's the most nutritious seed on the planet. It used to be mandated to grow hemp in this country. I mean, we saw this great movie a couple weeks ago called The Union. It's probably the best documentary on the history of hemp and why it's illegal and why it's probably going to stay illegal, because too many people profit in our government from it being illegal, like the pharmaceutical shareholders, the medical industrial complex, the industrial complex for the military like DuPont with, traditional arms maker and whatnot. Those companies cannot exist in an economy where hemp is legalized.
So that film actually is currently on my Netflix queue way down at the bottom. So I'm glad to hear you mention that. So I'll bump it up. The Union.
Put it up to the top. There's I've been waiting for a week to get it on DVD. I saw it online. You can see it for free on Google Video. Type in The Union. It's called the Union, The Business of Getting High. It's also on the tragedyandhope.com community site. If you want to 2-week register for the magazine, it's in there. You can watch it. Check it out. I guess when you come back to it, the root cause is that these people have this, they want to control us. They have this belief system, right? And that we're not in their group. We're not in their club, as George Carlin would say, right? It's the club that they beat us on the head with. So the idea is that once you recognize, well, some people got here first. They're well informed. They're using their information against us. All right, cool. They're preying on us. That's not so cool, but we're dealing with it. We're waking up to it. And so what do? You organize yourself. You inform yourself. You start letting the other neighborhoods and communities know, hey, we've got these group of bandits. They're coming in. They're preying with everybody. They're getting us to use their money. We don't know about money, so we're using theirs, right? It's just always been here since we got here. So it's like ubiquitous to our culture. But, Lincoln printed the greenbacks. Anytime that, you want to take your money back, it's there. You have the ability to print your own money.
Well, and there are 3 presidents who attempted to sort of, regain control over the money, and that's Jackson, Lincoln, and Kennedy, and we know what happened to all 3 of them.
Right. So it really does come back to the international bankers, because all the intelligence agencies, all the FBIs, CIAs, all these things work for the international bankers. Watch your James Bond movies again closely. Ian Fleming worked for MI6. MI6 has been around since the 1400s. It came out of Kabbalistic magician John Dee's bag of tricks, and the empire has found subversion and diversion through misdirection and magic very useful to intelligence gathering efforts. So when you watch James Bond again, know that they're really out there working for bankers, and that the bankers are paying not just both sides, but all 3 sides. Because in the case of Kuhn Loeb and Warburg and these other characters like J.P. Morgan, the Harriman families and whatnot, hey, they funded Germany. They funded the Bolshevik Revolution. They funded Wall Street and FDR and all this stuff from Wall Street. So they're controlling 2 or 3 sides at a time and always benefiting from it. So I only say, look, we can't continue to do the same thing over and over again and get an expected different result, right? We can only solve these problems by growing bigger than they are and expanding our awareness, because you can't solve problems at the same level of consciousness that created them, right? Which, that's an Einstein quote. He's telling us we have to go learn. We have to expand our boundaries. We have to expand our consciousness to be able to see the big picture, because the people who we're playing against have a much bigger picture. It's like, why is there no banker on the chessboard? I should have asked that in Project Constellation, and the answer would be, well, the banker moves all the pieces.